Should you save your budget for a more expensive guitar or just buy a cheaper guitar right now and upgrade it over time? So my general answer from my experience is that I think you should buy a mid-range guitar and upgrade it versus buying a really expensive guitar or a really crap guitar and upgrading that guitar, because I mean there's only so much you can do to polish a turd, right? So this is exactly what I did. My main Ibanez guitar is simply a mid-range budget guitar. It's actually an RG350, which is an incredibly awesome guitar from the outset at a very reasonable price. But naturally there was a point where I wanted to improve the tone and the playability of the instrument. So the number one thing that I did to this was get it set up by a professional tech. And what that essentially does is lowers the action of the instrument to increase the playability. Having this guitar set up professionally was literally one of the best things that I've ever done, and fully transformed the playability of this guitar into something that felt like thousands of pounds worth. I've genuinely played really expensive guitars that do not play as well as this cheaper instrument after being set up. Not only will having your guitar set up reduce the distance between the strings and the fretboard, meaning that you'll have to press less for each note that you play, but also your frets should be dressed. This is definitely something beyond my knowledge and that I suggest anybody gets done by a professional, because if you try and do this yourself, I mean, some people just reduce the screws on the bridge to lower the action, but by doing that your action is going to be inconsistent across the neck, and you're going to have a very low action at the top of the guitar and a little bit of a higher action towards the bottom here. And the inconsistency can create all sorts of problems, so I suggest you just get it done professionally. As well as having the guitar set up, I also had the whole neck stripped, so that's the back and the front. This was originally a bright color, but now it's a very dark color because it's obviously aged and open to the elements. And for me, I prefer the feel of the wood. I like to actually be able to feel the wood rather than a thick coat of lacquer or satin. I much prefer that natural feel, so for me that was actually also a very cool upgrade. Now, one of the next things that I did to improve the tone of this guitar was change the pickups. The first upgrade that I actually did was a DiMarzio tone zone in the bridge and an Air Norton in the neck, but over time I changed that due to my preference in tone, and I now have a tone zone in the bridge, a cruiser bridge in the middle position, and a cruiser neck in the neck position. So again, upgrading the pickups had a massive benefit on my tone. In fact, I think upgrading your pickups are one of the most significant things that you can do to improve your tone. To further better my tone, I've upgraded the volume pot and implemented a treble bleed mod behind that. So by upgrading the volume pot, it gives me a bit more consistency in that by default, volume pots, when you roll off the volume, it doesn't actually really do anything until you hit about 2, and then as soon as you go past 2 it just kind of cuts off and drops, whereas this volume pot is a lot more consistent and the volume drops off from 10 to 1 all the way consistently. And the treble bleed allows me to roll off the volume without the tone becoming muddy. So again, by default, usually when you roll off the volume pot on any guitar, it also knocks off some of the treble, and that's not something that you want ideally if you want to use your volume pot effectively. And I believe the volume pot is essentially a tone pot. In fact, I don't actually have a tone pot in here because I deem it as useless. I don't really use it. I consider the volume pot as the most important tone control on the instrument. So we've talked about playability, tone, and the last thing that I want to talk about is tuning. So to better my tuning, I upgraded the bridge from an Edge 3 trem to an OFR trem. Of course, if you don't have a Floyd Rose, then this doesn't really matter to you, but an OFR trem is just a really high quality trem which stays in tune and is just an incredible upgrade to any Floyd Rose on the market. I believe this is the best one. And with that, you will receive a new nut, which on my guitar, as you can see, is actually very worn. I do have a replacement one, but I kind of like the used and abused look, so yeah, I just keep this one on. But as you can see, I don't use the locking nuts, and the reason for that is because I don't need to, because I have locking tuners. So hopefully you can see that there are not really any winds around the tuners, which saves time for tuning and of course serves the purpose of locking the strings up this end and the bottom end where the Floyd Rose is, since it's a locking bridge. So it's kind of like a double locking system which keeps my guitar solidly in tune. Now the general con of a Floyd Rose, of course, is that you can only stay in one specific tuning, obviously standard tuning, but I have the advantage of a tremolo no in the back, which, if you don't know what that is, that basically locks the bridge into a place. so that you can then change the tuning of the guitar to whatever tuning you want and it doesn't affect the bridge position. So there we go, those are the 3 things that you can do to make your instrument awesome and literally sound and play better than something that you would buy off the shelf for thousands. Of course, that doesn't apply in every case, but I do believe that this is something that you can do to save money and kind of personalize your instrument a bit into something unique and tailored for you. If you have any of your own ideas on how to upgrade your instrument or any questions on some things that I mentioned, then make sure you drop them in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.